Hello YouTube world and welcome to my new project with the name Let's Read Don Quixote, which I will present to you in English because, well, the book's in English as well. So despite the fact that I'm German, I think I should be able to do this. But I will tell you beforehand, please forgive me any spelling or grammar mistakes I'll make when I speak, because as I have mentioned, English is not my mother tongue, but I'm studying it, so it shouldn't be all that bad to listen to me, at the very least. So, I chose to make a Let's Read. Let's Read, for those who don't know, is something like Let's Play, but with a book, obviously, which means I will read the book to you and pause at some points to tell you my thoughts about it spontaneously and comment on anything that comes to my mind while I'm reading this and my reactions to it, as I haven't read this book in quite a while. Actually, I've never read it to the end. I don't know why really, but I'm about to change this now, hopefully. So, I will start with reading the introduction by the author and also the text on the back of the book. Actually, I forgot the word for it, but, well, shit happens. So, I'll start. Don Quixote, Cervantes' tale of the deranged gentleman who turns knight-errant, tilts at windmills and battles with sheep in the service of the lady of his dreams, Dulcinea del Toboso, has fascinated generations of readers and inspired other creative artists such as Flaubert, Picasso, and Richard Strauss. The tall, thin knight and his short, fat squire, Sancho Panza, have found their way into films, cartoons, and even computer games. Supposedly intended as a parody of the most popular escapist fiction of the day, the books of chivalry, this precursor of the modern novel, broadened and deepened into a sophisticated comic account of the contradictions of human nature. On his heroic journey, Don Quixote meets characters of every class and condition, from the prostitute Mary Torrance, who is commended for her Christian charity, to the knight of the green coat, who seems to embody some of the constraints of virtue. Cervantes' greatest work can be enjoyed on many levels, all suffused with a subtle irony that reaches out to encompass the reader and does not leave the author outside its circle. Peter Murtaugh's fine 18th century translation, acknowledged as one of the best, brilliantly succeeds in communicating the spirit of the original Spanish. As you might have noticed, I don't know any Spanish, so I might not be especially good with the Spanish names in this book, but I hope you can forgive me that either. So, I will read to you the preface to the reader, written by the author now. You may depend upon my bare word, reader, without any further security, that I could wish this offspring of my brain were as ingenious, sprightly, and accomplished as yourself could desire. But the mischief of it is, nature will have its course, every production must resemble its author, and my barren and unpolished understanding can produce nothing but what is very dull, very impertinent, and extravagant beyond imagination. You may suppose it is the child of disturbance, engendered in some dismal prison, where wretchedness keeps its residence, and every dismal sound its habitation. Well, how do I say that? At the word prison, when the word prison was mentioned, there was a footnote, which says that the author is said to have wrote this satirical romance in prison. I think this might be a pretty helpful remark. So, let's go on. Rest and ease, a convenient place, pleasant fields and groves, murmuring springs and a sweet repose of mind, are helps that raise the fancy and impregnate even the most barren muses with conceptions that fill the world with admiration and delight. Some parents are so blinded by fatherly fondness that they mistake the very imperfections of their children for so many beauties, and the folly and impertinence of the brave boy must pass upon their friends and acquaintance for wit and sense. But I, who am only a stepfather, disavow the authority of this modern and prevalent custom. Nor will I earnestly beseech you, with tears in my eyes, which is many a poor author's case, dear reader, to pardon or dissemble my child's faults. For what favour can I expect from you, who are neither his friend nor relation? You have a soul of your own, and the privilege of free will, whoever you be, as well as the proudest he that struts in a gaudy outside. You are a king by your own fireside, as much as any monarch in his throne. You have liberty and property, which set you above favour or affection, and many therefore freely like or dislike this history, according to your humour. I had a great mind to have exposed it as naked as it was born, without the addition of a preface, or the numberless trumpery of commendatory sonnets, epigrams, and other poems that usually usher in the conception of authors. For I dare boldly say that though I bestowed some time in writing the book, yet it cost me not half so much labour as this very preface. I very often took up my pen, and as often laid it down, and could not for my life think of anything to the purpose. Sitting once in a very studious posture, with my paper before me, my pen in my ear, my elbow on the table, and my cheek on my hand, considering how I should begin, a certain friend of mine, an ingenious gentleman, and of a merry disposition, came and surprised me. He asked me what I was so very intent and thoughtful upon. I was so free with him as not to mince the matter, but told him plainly that I had been puzzling my brain for a preface to Don Quixote, and had made myself so uneasy about it that I was now resolved to trouble my head no further, either with preface or book, and even to let the achievements of that noble knight remain unpublished. For, continued I, why should I expose myself to the lash of the old legislator, the vulgar? They will say, I have spent my youthful days very finely, to have nothing to recommend my grey hairs to the world, but a dry, insipid legend, not worth a rush, wanting good language as well as invention, barren of conceits or pointed wit, and without either quotations on the margin, or annotations at the end, which other books, though never so fabulous and profane, have to set them off. Other authors can pass upon the public by stuffing their books from Aristotle, Plato, and the whole company of ancient philosophers, thus amusing their readers into a great opinion of their prodigious reading. Plutarch and Cicero are slurred in the public for as orthodox doctors as St. Thomas, or any of the fathers. And then the methods of these moderns is so wonderfully agreeable and full of variety that they cannot fail to please. In one line they will describe you a whining amorous coxcomb, and the next shall be some dry scrap of a homily with such ingenious turns as cannot choose but ravish the reader. Now I want all these embellishments and graces. I have neither marginal notes nor critical remarks. I do not so much as know what authors I follow, and consequently can have no formal index, as it is the fashion now, methodically strung on the letters of the alphabet, beginning with Aristotle, and ending with Xenophon, or Zalus, or Zeuxis, which last two are commonly crammed into the same piece. The one of them was a famous painter, and the other a saucy critic. I shall want also the pompous preliminaries of commendatory verses sent to be by the right honourable my lord such a one, by the honourable the lady such a one, or the most ingenious master such a one, though I know I might have them at an easy rate from 2 or 3 brothers of the quill of my acquaintance, and better, I am sure, that the best quality in Spain can compose. In short, my friend, said I. The great Don Quixote may lie buried in the musty records of La Mancha, till Providence has ordered some better hand to fit him out as he ought to be. For I must own myself altogether incapable of the task. Besides, I am naturally lazy, and love my ease too well to take the pains of turning over authors for those things which I can express as well without it. And there are the considerations that made me so thoughtful when you came in. In my opinion, that was not short. Wow! Half of the preface is just about how the author doesn't know how to write a preface. That's awesome, somehow. Or not. I don't know. Okay. The gentleman, after a long and loud fit of laughing, rubbing his forehead. "Oh, my conscience, friend," said he, "your discourse has freed me from a mistake that has a great while imposed upon me. I always took you for a man of sense, but now I am sufficiently convinced to the contrary." "What? Puzzled at so inconsiderable a trifle? A business of so little difficulty confound a man of such deep sense and searching thought as once you seem to be?" Yeah, well, I also think that preface shouldn't be that important. I mean, if the work delivers, the work itself, I think that suffices. But I think everyone has their own opinion of that, and maybe at that time it was more important as well, who knows. I'm sorry, sir, that your lazy humour and poor understanding should need the advice I am about to give you, which will presently solve all your objections and fears concerning the publishing of the renowned Don Quixote, the luminary and mirror of all knight-errantry. "Pray, sir," said I, "be pleased to instruct me in whatever you think may remove my fears or solve my doubts." "The first thing you object," replied he, "is your want of commendatory copies from persons of figure and quality. There's nothing sooner helped. It is but taking a little pains in writing them yourself, and clapping whose name you please to them. You may father them on Prester John of the Indies, or on the Emperor of Trebizonde, whom I know to be most celebrated poets. Okay, but suppose they were not, and that some presuming pedantic critics might snarl and deny this notorious truth, value it not 2 farthings, and though they should convict you of forgery, you are in no danger of losing the hand with which you wrote them. There's a footnote at that. He lost his left hand in the sea fight at Lepanto against the Turks. Who lost his hand? I don't know who lost his hand. The author? Well, I don't know. Maybe someone can answer me that. As to marginal notes and quotations from authors for your history, it is but dropping here and there some scattered Latin sentences that you have already by rote, or may have with little or no pains. For example, treating of liberty and slavery, clap me in. Non bene pro toto libertas venditur auro. And at the same time make Horace or some other author vouch it in the margin. If you treat of the power of death, come around with this close. Pallida mors aequo pulsat pede pauperum tabernas regumque turis. I knew Latin once. I've had it in school, but that's 2 years ago now, 2.5 actually. So long? Yes, I believe it is. No, 1.5. It's 1.5. Sure. So, I'm not really understanding a word of it anymore. That's a bit sad, but, well, can't be helped. I think these sentences are translated somewhere. I mean, there are numbers behind them, but it's not on the same page, apparently. So, well, I'll leave them untranslated for now. Sorry for that. I'll continue. If of loving our enemies as heaven enjoins, you may, if you have the least curiosity, presently turn to the divine precept and say, Ego autem dico vobis, delegite in imicos vestros. Or if you discourse of bad thoughts, bring in this passage, Dequade exeunt cogitationis malae. If the uncertainty of friendship be your theme, Cato offers you his old couplet with all his heart. Donec eris felix multus numerabis amicus. Tempora si fuerin nubila solus eris. And so proceed. These scraps of Latin will at least gain you the credit of a great grammarian, which, I will assure you, is no small accomplishment in this age. As to annotations or remarks at the end of your book, you may safely take this course. If you have occasion for for a giant in your piece, be sure you bring in Golia, and on this very Golia, who will not cost you 1 farthing, you may spin out a swinging annotation. You may say, the giant Golia, or Goliath, was a Philistine, whom David the shepherd slew with a thundering stroke of a pebble in the valley of Terebinthus. Vide, Kings, in such a chapter and such a verse, where you may find it written. I don't know what the word vide does there. I don't know if it should be a mix-up of Latin and English, or rather Spanish willingly, but if that's so, it's probably something like look at the kings or see the kings or something like that, I guess. But I wouldn't depend on that explanation, or yeah, you know what I mean, I guess. If not satisfied with this, you would appear a great humanist and would show your knowledge in geography, take some occasion to draw the river Tagus into your discourse, out of which you may fish a most notable remark. The river Tagus, say you, was so called from a certain king of Spain, takes its rise from such a place, and buries its waters in the ocean, kissing first the walls of the famous city of Lisbon. And some are of opinion that the sense of this famous city of Lisbon, German, that the sands of this river are gold, etc. If you have occasion to talk of robbers, I can presently give you the history of Cacus, I don't know, for I have it by heart. If you would descend upon horse or women of the town, there is the Bishop of Mondonado, who can furnish you with Lamia, Lais, and Flora courtesans, whose acquaintance will add very much to your reputation. There's a remark for the bishop, I guess? Guevara? I don't know what this should tell us, but I'll just add it anyway, just for fun. Ovid's Medea can afford you a good example of cruelty. Calypso from Homer and Circe out of Virgil are famous instances of witchcraft or enchantment. Would you treat of valiant commanders? Julius Caesar has writ his commentaries on purpose, and Plutarch can furnish you with 1,000 Alexanders. If you would mention love and have but 3 grains of Italian, you may find Leon the Jew, ready to serve you most abundantly. But if you keep nearer home, it is but examining Fonseca of divine love, which you have here in your study. And you need to go no further, for all that can be said on that copious subject. In short, it is but quoting these authors in your book, and let me alone to make large annotations. I will engage to crowd your margin sufficiently, and scribble you 4 or 5 sheets besides at the end of your book. And for the citation of so many authors, it is the easiest thing in nature. Find out one of those books with an alphabetical index, and without any further ceremony remove it verbatim into your own. And though the world will not believe you have occasion for such lumber, yet there are fools enough to be thus drawn into an opinion of the work. At least, such a flourishing train of attendants will give your book a fashionable air, and recommend it to sale, for few chapmen will stand to examine it, and compare the authorities upon the compa, since they can expect nothing but their labour for their pains. But after all, sir, I know anything of the matter. If I know anything of the matter, you have no occasion for any of those things. For your subject, being a satire on knight-errantry, is absolutely new, so absolutely new, that neither Aristotle, St. Basil, nor Cicero ever dreamed or heard of it. Those fabulous extravagancies have nothing to do with the impartial punctuality of true history, nor do I find any business you can have either with astrology, geometry, or logic, and I hope you are too good a man to mix sacred things with profane. Nothing but pure nature is your business. Her you must consult, and the closer you can imitate your picture is the better. And since this writing of yours aims at no more than to destroy the authority and acceptance of the books of chivalry have had in the world, and among the vulgar, you have no need to go begging sentences of philosophers, passages out of holy wit, poetical fables, rhetorical orations, or miracles of saints. Do but take care to express yourself in a plain, easy manner, in well-chosen, significant, and decent terms, and to give a harmonious and pleasing turn to your periods. Study to explain your thoughts, and set them in the truest light, labouring, as much as possible, not to leave them dark nor intricate, but clear and intelligible. Let your diverting stories be expressed in diverting terms, to kindle mirth in the melancholic, and heighten it in the gay. Let mirth and humour be your superficial design, though laid on a solid foundation, to challenge attention from the ignorant, and admiration from the judicious, to secure your work from the contempt of the gravest sort, and deserve the praises of men of sense, keeping your eyes still fixed on the principal end of your project, the fall and destruction of that monstrous heap of ill-contrived romances, which, though abhorred by many, have so strangely infatuated the greater part of mankind. Mind this, and your business is done. I listened very attentively to my friend's discourse, and found it so reasonable and convincing that without any reply I took his advice, and have told you the story by way of preface. Wherein you may see, gentlemen, how happy I am in so ingenious a friend, to whose seasonable counsel you are all obliged for the omission of all this pedantic garniture in the history of the renowned Don Quixote de la Mancha, whose character among all the neighbours about Montiel is that he was the most chaste lover and the most valiant knight that has been known in those parts these many years. I will not urge the service I have done you by introducing you into so considerable and noble a knight's acquaintance, but only beg the favour of some small acknowledgment for recommending you to the familiarity of the famous Sancho Panza, his squire, in whom, in my opinion, you will find united and described all the squire-like graces which are scattered up and down in the whole bead-roll of books of chivalry. And now I take my leave, entreating you not to forget your humble servant. So, all he did in the preface was basically saying that, well, didn't really need a big preface, because one paragraph was apparently enough. But I don't know how this long story will serve our understanding of the story itself in any way, but I think it was pretty nicely written and pretty enjoyable, I guess, I hope. because otherwise I guess I have bored you to death. But if that was so, you can just skip to the actual beginning of the story itself, which will be the next part I will upload. And this should be a lot more interesting. But anyway, for those who have listened to all this prefacing, thank you for your attention. And yeah, leave a comment or like this video if you liked it. If not, tell me why you didn't. And I hope will hear us, see us, hear us makes more sense in the next video. Bye!